Okay, I picked up a Beretta Model 81 recently from Midway, USA. I guess they're from Italy. Apparently they were used by Italian law enforcement in Italy. It's in pretty good shape. I got a few issues that'll be easy to solve and a few issues that'll be difficult to solve. So I haven't fired this gun yet. Beretta chambered these in 22 long rifle, 32 auto, and 380. This one was chambered in 32 auto. So it doesn't appear by looking inside that it's been fired very much, because if it had, I would expect to see a little polished area on the ramp there, or at least where some of the bluing was rubbed off as the round hit into the ramp and slid up. And I would also expect to see a lot of deposits back here on the breech face, which I don't see. It still is dirty. There's a lot of lint in here, probably from the police officer's uniform. There's the screws here. The upper screw is in pretty good shape. The lower screw, which if it was being carried in a holster, would be exposed. It probably got rained on sometimes, or maybe touched by the hand when moving around. So I'm going to clean those screws up. I don't know what it looks like underneath the grips. I'm expecting it'll be dirty under there. Some of the more difficult issues for me to handle will be, you can probably see that right there, a little ding right there, right on the line angle. That's a problem. So there's a little catch over here. I can feel with my fingernail, little one right there. So my plan is to get a file and just remove those little bumps where the catches are, and clean that up and hide it with a bluing. Same thing over here, although these are a lot more minor. So this is just how I received it. I got it for $219. And so the round that it fires is the 32 auto. It's a 7.62, a little shorty one though. There it is, 32 auto. Not a very powerful round. I'm a little surprised that the Italian law enforcement was using it. But anyways, I'm going to take this apart. I came with one magazine. Magazines are not real difficult to find. In fact, I found some on, I think it was Amazon, and I ordered two, which I haven't received yet. It's a 12 round double stack. This pistol also comes in a single stack version. The double stack will have the kind of thicker, grip on it. The single stack is thinner. So this one's the double stack. So with 12 in the magazine, 1 in the chamber, I have a total possibility of 13 rounds. So to disassemble the Model 81, which is this is a blowback design, just blows back the slide this way when it fires. Then the casing gets extracted and then ejected. And it feeds in a new one. I think they made these starting from the mid 70s, maybe 76. I think they discontinued this Model 81 a few years ago. I don't know what years this particular pistol was in use in Italy, but I would imagine in probably late 70s, 80s, maybe even up into the 90s when it was used. So to take this apart, there's a lever here, and what you have to do is push this button on this side, right there. And once I push that, then I'm able to rotate this lever. when the lever's rotated, then I can move the slide forward and it'll come off like that. Then we have the recoil rod with its spring. Just going to push that forward and a little bit, and then up, and lift out from this little notch right here. And then we'll remove our barrel. Let's see. There we go. So like I say, from the appearance of this, it has not been fired much. The barrel is dirty, so I'm going to have to scrub that out. Take a few minutes to scrub that clean. The slide, there's our breech face again. So like I say, I don't believe it's been fired a lot. There are some deposits around there, but they're not real heavy. Also, the wear here seems minimal on the bluing. So I'll clean this up. My first step will be to get a file and see if I can improve this line angle here a little bit, and then we'll have to blue it. As far as the screws go, I'm going to remove them. I have some rust dissolver, navel jelly, and what I'm going to do is soak the head of these screws in there. Well, I'll just like paint it on there and clean that rust off. I'll be using this steel brush on it, and after I get all that cleaned off, of course, much of the bluing will be gone. So I'll go ahead and use some of this birchwood super blue, which does a pretty good job for cold bluing, and it's not as durable as a hot blue, but I should be able to get a good finish. After I remove the rust, I'll of course wash it with hot soap and water. I'll give it a quick spray with this parts cleaner and make sure it's real clean so it'll blue nicely. And so we'll take care of that here in a minute. So the first thing I'm going to do, or the next thing I'm going to do after removing this slide and barrel, is remove these screws, and we'll see what it looks like underneath the grip. I assume it's going to be pretty dirty. I hope I don't see that it looks especially terrible. But I haven't removed these grips, so this is the first time I've done that. And we'll see how bad it is. Hopefully it's not too bad. So here comes the grip from the right side. Like I say, a little bit of dirt, some oil, some lint, but nothing scary on this side. You know, you can polish these Bakelite grips, which I may end up doing someday. There's kind of a scratch right here. I wouldn't be able to remove that, or a little gouge there. But all the surface minor scratching, I should be able to get that off. Probably would go with carefully with some 2000 grit paper. Just real careful along here. Being careful not to touch the this part of the grip here. And then use some polishing compound. So I might do that someday. Let's turn it over. Remove the grip on the other side. Remember to always get the correct screwdriver when we're working on our guns, which is sometimes something that we may not always do, because we want to take our gun apart and we don't have the correct screwdriver, and we're impatient and we want to hurry up and get to it. But it's important, because if not, you damage these little slots here in these screws. If it's something real minor, you could fix it with a file and re-blue it. But if you mess the screw up a lot, it just won't look good anymore. So here's the other side. Same thing. Got quite a bit of oil. Looks like it's probably been over oiled. Quite a bit of lint right up in here. probably from the police officer's uniform. So we'll clean all that off and clean everything up, and we'll put it back together. So the first thing I wanted to do was attend to these. This ding right here looks like somebody dropped something on it or dropped the gun. You know, maybe they slid them out of a box onto a table and they're all together. I'm not sure what happened there. But I won't be able to remove the entire ding. Of course, I'm just where my fingernail catches on it on this side and this side. I want to remove that. And same thing over here. So we'll carefully run a file along there and just clean those peaks of those mountains off there in the metal. And then we'll clean this slide up and we'll apply some bluing, these little scratches and stuff here, and see if we can get that looking better. Hopefully without making it worse. I have a little mini file set. Here's a flat file. I've used this quite a bit on guns. Notice the edge of the file can be used to file metal too. On this side, I ground that off. So this side is smooth. So this side, machinists call that the safe side. So might consider doing that with your file set. The safe side is important for certain jobs with your file, so that you know, the side doesn't have cutting ability and it's safe and it won't damage your metal. All right. So right there, where my fingernail catches on there, I'm going to try to remove that. And if I can get most of it gone, that's fine. Then of course I have to re-blue that. Okay, that side's gone. It took 5 or 6 strokes, so I don't feel that on my fingernail anymore. It's gone. Let's do this side. You know, working right on the line angle is pretty difficult because it's easy to when you're working right on the line angle to make it so it's not straight anymore. And even after you blue it, it'll look funny because the way the light reflects off of it. Okay, I don't feel that anymore. There's a little bit right on the edge there. Just lightly go across. That's gone now too. Okay, good. That was easy. This side, it looks like it's even easier. Just go right there. I'm a few degrees off from being parallel with the end of the slide there, if you can see that. Okay, same thing, top edge. Just a few degrees from the flat surface there. Just to remove the part there where my fingernail catches on it. Okay, that's gone. There's a little bit right there. That's gone. Okay, completed that. So we'll set that aside because we still have to clean this before we can blue it, right? So next thing I'm going to do is put some of this rust remover on the head of these screws and scrub it with my wire brush. I really won't be able to do that here because I'll get my working surface here all dirty. So I'll just be going back and forth like this. I'll be going different directions, but I need to make sure to concentrate on this direction so that the bristles of my brush get inside here, you know, this slot, you know, where the screwdriver goes, and get that all cleaned out. So after I get that completed, which will take me a few minutes, I'll be back and show you what the heads of these screws look like. All right, I finished cleaning these screws up. Before I show them to you, I just want to make a suggestion. whenever cleaning parts in a sink, kitchen sink, or any sink, it's really easy to drop something as small as this down the drain, which happened to me years ago. So I always use one of these little strainer things, always, because you think you're not going to drop it, and then you do, and down it goes. You can pick these up at grocery stores. This particular one is really old, as you can see. I've had it for years, and I picked it up at an Asian market. I liked it because of its real solid construction. It's a thick piece of metal here rather than a little screen. So remember that. It'll save you a lot of grief if you always make sure you use this. One of these when you clean anything small in the sink. Okay, so the screws are cleaned up. There we go. Remember this, not only did I remove the rust with my navel jelly, but it also begins to remove the bluing as well. And so after I scrubbed them with a wire brush and this rust remover, I then scrubbed them with hot soapy water. Then I dried them. Then I went outside and sprayed some parts cleaner on it. So hopefully I've got my screws clean enough that they will blue. I'll get my little bottle of super blue here, and I'm going to be using a Q-tip, just dipping it in my bluing stuff here, and then rub it on my screw. And let's see how this goes here. It should blow up pretty good, and I'll take a few applications, of course. I'm going to get a little bit more in here, let it run down in there, in that little groove of or slot there of the screw, because when I was cleaning with my wire brush, the wire brush was cleaning down that little slot as well. So I'm going to do all 4 of these one at a time, and then we'll have to wipe them with a cloth that's just barely damp, and go for our next application, and they'll get darker and darker. Make sure some runs down that little slot again. Got 2 more to go. Bluing small parts like this is pretty easy. So if you have a part that needs to be refinished, you can do it. Now, of course, hot blue will be more durable and probably darker, but this will be at least as dark as the original screw was. And I'm not sure what order I did these in. I usually keep track of that. Let's go back and kind of just lightly wipe this off. So this paper towel here is just barely damp, and then we'll do another application after we make sure the surface of the screw is dry. I don't know how many applications I'll do. It's going to be at least 2. Okay. Let's go ahead and do a second application here. Make sure those are dry. Okay, here goes application number 2. So it should just get darker and darker. I'll keep my order straight this time. Maybe I'll lay them on their side like that. Okay, and finally get to the last one. It's possible I didn't get that slot all the way filled with bluing before. There we go. Well, we know we did for sure this time. All right, just kind of wipe that off and check them after we wipe them with our damp cloth to see if we've arrived at what we're looking for. Again, it looks like maybe I didn't get that slot flooded bluing. There's a little spot in there that didn't look blued. I think we'll go one more time. And then we'll talk about what to do after we've arrived at a level of bluing that's going to work for us. I have done some larger parts with this super blue before. What I did in that case is I actually warmed the part with a hair dryer so that the metal was, you know, nice and warm. And at least visually, I thought I got a little bit better of a result that way. Okay. Well, they almost look like new screws here now. So I think we're going to stop there. The next thing we do after we've arrived at, you know, the end of what we think we need to do is get some oil and put on there. This is the oil I've been using lately, M-Pro 7. Although I haven't been able to find it for sale anymore. So maybe I'm going to have to switch. In fact, I'll be making my own gun oil. Maybe in my next video I'll tell you how I'm going to do that, because it should work just as well as any gun oil you can buy in store at a fraction of the cost. So we'll talk about that another day. All right, so I'm stopping the bluing process and protecting my metal here by putting some oil on these. So here you go. Our screws are looking pretty good, way better than what we started with. So let's put our screws aside. I think the next thing I'll do is I'll clean all the dirt and oil off these grips. Now I'm not going to be able to use my wire brush for that, because this steel brush here will scratch, you know, this relatively soft Bakelite material. So I use a brush with plastic bristles. I was thinking of maybe sneaking in the bathroom and grabbing my wife's toothbrush and clean it up. She'll never know, right? And with some nice warm soapy water, and get these as clean as I can. So that'll be the next step. Alright, so I got some warm soapy water and I cleaned all the lint and oil and dust and stuff out of there. They were pretty dirty, as you could see. So like I said, I'm thinking maybe someday I might come back and polish these little borders here on these grips. It would be pretty easy, so you'd have to make sure you didn't touch any of this checkering here in the middle, because that'll just flatten the little peaks of those off and then it won't look good. So anyways, I spent about 3 minutes scrubbing these and rinsing them, and so that was pretty rapid. The screws, I probably spent 2 to 3 minutes per screw cleaning them, and then so I scrubbed them briefly. I used my navel jelly. I left that on the surface for about 1.5 2 minutes. I went back with the navel jelly on the metal there, scrubbed it, did the best I could. Then I washed them with hot soapy water. Oh, I'm still using my water brush here. Then I dried them. I sprayed them with this, let them dry, and then we blued them. So I think probably the next thing I'll do is I'll clean up this slide. Now remember, we had this little ding here right on the line angle, and I was able to remove enough of it. I can't feel it with my fingernail going in any direction anymore. I can still see where the ding is, but I don't have any way to remove the ding entirely unless I resurface this whole thing. And that ding probably feels like, gosh, I don't know, 1,000th or so, and I don't really want to do all that. So the first thing we're going to do is clean all this oil, and there's some deposits here on the breech face. Clean that off. It's kind of standard cleaning procedure there. And after to do that, I'll wipe this. Sorry about that. My battery in my phone went dead, and it quit on me. So what I was saying was, I'll clean this up here, all this oil and grime and stuff out of here. Then I'll wipe these surfaces here the best I can with my parts cleaner. And after I got as clean as I can, I'll come back and blue those edges with my super blue to hide those blemishes. And I'm expecting it'll turn out pretty good. It'll look way better than it looks right now. All right. Okay, I cleaned the slide, cleaned the breech face up pretty good. And so now we're going to see if I got the metal clean enough that I can blue these spots here that we were working on. Let's see how that works out.
Just step on this pad. Step on the pad. There you go.
Put my blue on there.
Come to me, brother.
Okay, it is bluing. A couple of areas here where the finish has been damaged. Let's get some more super blue on my Q-tip. There we go. I'll across these spots. Now if I got the metal clean enough, it should blue those bare areas there. I notice there's a little scuff mark over here. A very slight pitting of the metal in there, which I couldn't see until I cleaned it. Right along this line angle, any little areas where the bluing's been rubbed off or scraped off, I can restore that. It's looking pretty good. It's looking better already. Okay, we'll get that damp cloth we used a minute ago. We'll kind of wipe that. May do a second application. Those little mini scratches there, mostly on the corners, on the line angles. I see there's one there I missed, so let's come back and put some on that. There we go. That one disappeared. Okay. So this is not perfect. Of course, that would require, stripping the whole part, spending quite a bit of time, planing the sides and, filing the sides and then polishing them and then re-bluing the whole thing, which, not wanting to do. So, okay. So all those little marks where the bluing had been rubbed or scraped off, they're all blued now, and our ding and our line angle is looking pretty good. Of course, you can still see where the ding was, but I can't feel anything with my fingernail anymore. And then wherever we worked, and then the spot there where the impact was, that's all blued in there now. Okay, so our slide is good to go. We'll rub that with our damp cloth here, just a paper towel that I dampened a while ago. And then to stop the bluing reaction completely and protect the metal, we're going to put some oil on it. So I'll use this one here that we set our screws on earlier. I'll get some of that Pro 7 oil, and I'll just kind of go across that, and we'll protect the metal and stop that bluing process, because all the bluing chemicals will be neutralized or gone. Okay, well, our slide looks better than it did. All those marks on the edges those corners there are gone. And there were some spots down here in the bottom where the guide rod goes, where the bluing was damaged, so that's all blued. Okay, well, that's it for the slide. I think the next thing I'll do is clean this barrel up. There won't be any bluing that I need to repair in this, because the barrel's in pretty good shape, just kind of dirty. And I'll run a brush through the inside of the barrel there and clean those the grooves and the lands off, because there's a lot of crud in there. And we'll get that done, and then I'll be back. Okay, well, we've got the barrel cleaned up, so the lands and the grooves after cleaning it, probably can't see anything there with the camera, but they look really nice. What I used to clean it with was Pro 7 gun cleaner. I've used several gun cleaners over the years. I haven't really developed an absolute favorite, but I do like this one a lot. So I use this brush here, scrubbed it out. Now what we're going to do is, now we've got it all clean, we need to put just a little bit of oil on this patch here. These are 22 patches, but I put 2 of them in there so it'll be thick enough to go through there. We'll get, there's a little bit of oil on the outside of my bottle here. Just get a little bit of that on this patch and run it through here a few times to protect the metal inside there from any rust. So that's pretty easy. Okay, there we go. So now the barrel's ready to go, nice and clean. And my next job will be to clean up this frame, which it's pretty dirty. It's got a lot of oil here where the grips were, a lot of lint and dust and stuff in here. So because we have more areas to clean, this will take me longer than the slide did or the barrel. So this is going to take a few minutes, but it should turn out nice. And then we'll go around and oil where we need to and start putting it back together. All right, took a
It just appeared on my
few
feed.
minutes, but we got the frame all cleaned up. There's lots of little nooks and crannies I had to clean there, so it took a few
What is this
minutes,
black one do?
but it's looking pretty good. So what we're going to get ready to do now is get ready to start reassembly. So the first thing I'll do is there's some pivot points and stuff on here I need to lubricate. So I have some gun oil in this little syringe thing here. That's that M-Pro 7 oil that we talked about a minute ago. So I like this because it allows me to put just a small amount of oil right where I want it. Of course, there'll still be some excess that we're going to want to clean off. So just look around, see wherever there's a pivot point or a place where there's some moving part, and that's where we're going to put some oil. Here's that little pin there, or button that we push to take the slide off. So we'll put some oil there. I can be a little more accurate with my oil application with this little syringe than I can with, you know, this big opening on that bottle there. Another thing I like to do is maybe like this magazine release, I can push it and see where the parts move and see what touches what as it moves, and it'll show me where might be good to put some oil in there. Like I say, there'll be some excess that we need to remove, of course. Got the trigger here. It moves here. Should be right, probably touching in the inside of the slide there. Then it rotates in here. There's a little spring in there. So put a little bit of oil in there. And of course the hammer, it moves here. Okay. So you can see these little spots where there's the bluing was rubbed off from operating the control there. So that'll show me where I can put some oil too. Maybe right here. There, of course. Okay. So what we're going to do now is get ready to start reassembly. The first thing we need to do is put our parts back in our slide. We've got our recoil guide and our spring, then our barrel. Barrel goes in first, so we'll need to see where we want to put any lubrication here. Now the recoil guide sits in this little notch right here, so I just put a little, not even a drop there, of oil in there. I can see some of the bluing's kind of rubbed off there. So we know that as the gun moves, that it touches that slightly, that area slightly on the inside of the slide. So put a little bit of oil there too. Very good. So let's insert our barrel into the slide now.
Oh, I won.
Okay. Then we'll want to put a little bit of oil on our recoil guide and our spring too. Of course, as this operates here, the spring's going to move because it'll be partially compressed, and that will help me spread the rest of this oil around up and down my guide rod. So I don't really need to do that right now because it'll do that when the gun's in operation as I cycle it. Okay, so we have our recoil guide back in place. Remember, it just sits in this little notch right here in the bottom of the barrel. And I put a little tiny spot of oil there. Okay. Now the slide has these rails in here that contact, well, these little cuts in here that contact the rail on our
Does a person become a dog?
on our frame here. It's some sort of an alloy frame. I'm not sure what the metal is, but we'll go ahead and we'll oil these spots. Then as that goes into our slide, the oil that's on here will transfer to wherever it moves in there. You can put oil, in this inside the slide there too, I suppose, which I do on my 1911s, just a little bit. So in that case, I'd put a little bit on the internal aspect of the slide and on the rails of the frame, just a little bit there. So you can see the bluing's kind of rubbed off here just slightly by cycling the gun. So that shows us where, there's some contact. That's where we're going to want a little bit of lubrication. Okay. Alrighty. See if we can put this back together. Oh, one more place I almost forgot is when the slide moves back, it pushes the hammer back. So in other words, the hammer rubs on this part of the slide here, right in the center. So we'll be sure to put a little bit of oil right there. Yeah, just like that. It's easy to over oil a gun, but you need to make sure we do have sufficient lubrication though. Alright, so now let's put this together. Wait a minute. This part of the rail here goes on the cut there on the inside of the slide. So we'll make sure, I did that side already. Okay, let's go ahead and see if we can start reassembling the Model 81. Now I need to slide it back to where I can rotate this little lever back up. So the first thing I do is put the slide in the right position. I push this button right here, see right there? And that allows me to rotate this little lever up. So we have the slide back on. This is a real smooth gun. I'm pretty impressed with how smooth it is. Another place you can put some oil if you're uncertain if you got, or if you forgot to put oil in there, you can put it right here in this spot of the hammer, because that's the spot of the hammer, the area of the hammer that contacts the slide as you move back. Okay, so next thing we're going to do is reinstall our grips, which we could polish, and maybe I'll do that someday, but for now I'll just leave it like this. It would be easy to polish them, take a few minutes, but not difficult. And run our screws in. Let's see. We're talking about using the correct screwdriver. This is a pretty narrow slot on here, and I got this little 1/4-inch drive piece which fits right in there. But it's snug enough. I have to make sure it's lined up before I start turning it, because it barely fits in there. Okay. Don't want to over tighten these. They were pretty snug when I took it apart, so I won't use this handle here. I'll just go on as tight, finger tight, using this little thing here, this little attachment. That should be tight enough. Okay, let's turn it over. Put our grip on the other side. There we go. Yep. Get our screws. The screws turned out pretty good. Of course, they're not perfect, but they're way better than what they were. There's no rust visible on them, and they look nice and blue and matches the rest of the gun. Put our other one in before we tighten that one all the way. It just barely contacted the grip there, and I'll go on and move on to the next one. Run this screw in, then we'll tighten them. Just like with almost every part, what you want to do is you don't want to put one screw and tighten it all the way, because this there's a little bit of play here, and this grip needs to shift a little bit to be in the right orientation with the you know, the frame there before you tighten them all the way. Okay, so we're getting it back together now. The magazine seemed pretty clean, so I got a little bit of, let's get some more, a little bit of oil on this piece of paper towel here, just kind of rub it around here. If you wanted to take your magazine apart, there's this little thing you depress here. Right here is a little spring-loaded button there. You depress this, and then you can slide this floor plate off. Be sure to have your hand there, because the spring will come shooting out. And you can take it apart and clean it if you need to. Alrighty. So of course we'll want to. There's just a light amount of oil on this paper towel here. We'll just go around and make sure. Oops, sorry. Make sure we've got you know, all of our metal protected. The oil will kind of soak into the pores of the metal there a little bit and protect it. These little controls here can make sure we get them like down in our trigger. Looks like I probably should have cleaned my trigger. Well, I still can. A little bit of rust in those little lines there, so that won't be hard. I should have done this earlier, of course. That was an oversight on my part. So I'm just running this little wire brush lightly through those grooves there. So, okay, we did pretty good there. We'll oh, sorry, keep drifting out of the view of the camera. And then we'll put some oil in there, and we'll kind of rub that into it. Maybe I can use that same wire brush, because the little bristles there get down in the grooves of the face of the trigger there. Yeah. Okay. We did pretty good there. Looks reasonable. Of course, if I keep a little bit of oil on this, I won't have that issue return. Pretty easy there. So, okay. So we have our Beretta 81 cleaned up and reassembled. We fixed the spots right there in the corner where some of the bluing was gone. There was a ding there, so I filed that to smooth it so I couldn't feel it with my fingernail anymore. And after that, I cleaned it up and blued it. So it was a pretty good looking handgun to begin with. And now after I've cleaned it up and re-blued it, where the little places where the bluing was marred, it looks even better. So I think this will be a fun one to shoot. And I have fired .32 auto before. It's kind of a small round. It's not very powerful, but one thing about it, it's really easy to stay on target because there isn't, much recoil or muzzle rise. All right, that's it. So if you find a gun you're interested in, a used one on a site like Midway USA, for example, that's where I got this one. Just realize that it's probably going to come kind of dirty. You'll have to clean it up. I saw on a site somewhere where somebody's complaining about the used gun he bought was dirty and he had to clean it. But if you think about it, when the the new guns come and they want to change over to a new gun, you know, those guys just turn in their older gun. They don't take them apart and clean them before they turn them in. They just take them out of their take their holster off and take the gun out and put it on the table. So there you go, give me my new gun. So you're going to get a dirty gun that you're going to have to spend some time cleaning up. So there you go, Beretta model 81 32 auto. It's going to be a fun one. Have a good day.